welcome to episode 64 of Cutscene Convo. And it's an interesting one this week because The Mandalorian is finished now.
It has,
there wasn't a lot of
sadly.
other stuff. We've had like a busy, entire year so far with just loads of content. And this is, I want to say, the first episode all year where we've only got one thing to really talk about. But don't worry, we've still got plenty to waffle on about, including a character profile on spot, Mandalorian episode 8, why are comic books so difficult to get into and how we can fix it, as well as a Supernerd summer preview of what we've got coming in the next couple of months. We've got a tasty little bit of a Nerd News Network before wrapping it up with Ghost Rider versus Ultron in this week's Superhero Showdown. But before all that good stuff, Horizontal, how's your week been?
I mean, my week was going all right till like a couple of days ago. Hopefully, I don't know if it's coming through, but I am currently feeling pretty shit, which could be the good old COVID has arrived at my pleasant doorstep again.
Imagine getting COVID in 2023, bro.
Mate, second time. But yeah, my family, my dad's had it recently in the past few days, so high chance it is that. Hopefully it's not and I'm just under the weather, but other than that, I've had a pretty productive work week and getting projects done. KCP announced their Midwest Fest, which was the thing I alluded to last week.
Yeah.
Put on like a gaming convention festival thing based in the Midwest, because most of the time it's either West Coast or East Coast.
Yeah, there's nothing that happens in the middle of America.
No, so
it all happens on the coast.
Very exciting. A lot of people showing interest. A lot of brands showing interest. That's super cool. And then yeah, obviously we had Mando this week, so
we did.
A great week in terms of that. And then the last couple of days it's just gone downhill, unfortunately. But we move. Hopefully, shift this pretty quickly, and hopefully I don't cough too much through this episode. But if you see me silently throwing up into my hand, just coughing my lungs up, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, that's been my week. My week's been pretty chill otherwise. How's the world of Conor been?
It's not been too bad. So I've been busy interviewing your replacement in case you die. No, so I mean, we recorded last week and then I shot off to Ireland the next day. So it was fly out Friday, relatively early, not crazy early. To Ireland, land in, see some family, get some food. Then we spent the night chilling in with the latest cousin, whose christening we were over for, so that her mum and dad could go out for an evening with some friends because they live in Australia. So any Irish friends they have, they don't get to see that often. So that was nice. Got to just chill, get some cuddles with the new family member. It was lovely. Then Saturday was just, I mean, chaos start to finish. Christening day, big Irish family. And like, here's the thing with a family of this size, you only get together for 3 things: weddings, deaths, and christenings.
Yeah.
That's it. So the last time I saw a large majority of people there was my granddad Joe's funeral, like 9 years ago. So that was like, it's just, I mean, it's crazy. You just spend half the day going, oh my God, you've changed so much. Oh my God, you've barely changed at all. What's going on? But it was really nice. Then, I mean, so what, the christening was at 12 and I was finally getting into bed at midnight with some chicken nuggets.
After several pints of Guinness, I suppose.
I didn't drink any Guinness. I was on JD all day, but there was lots of drinking to be done. As well as lots of people to be meeting, because my uncle's family from Australia, I hadn't met any of them before, so there was lots of new faces as well. Then Sunday was going around to see some family in a little bit less chaotic and a little bit more one-on-one almost. Just to see them, because I mean, just part and parcel of going back to where all your family is. It's going around there and doing the trips and seeing everyone.
Yeah, doing the rounds.
Before getting up at, so what, Sunday after doing all the rounds, I got back home at 11ish, and then it was up at 5 a.m. to get to the airport.
Fun.
Yeah. So then Monday was getting back home, trying to feel like human, trying not to go for a midday slap and chalk in the sleep schedule for the rest of the month. And then Tuesday I drove all the way to Kent for some training.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that was another long day, and now it's Thursday and the week's just gone, and I just it's crazy. So like, as much as I've got loads I need to do this weekend, there is also a real chance I just sleep all day Saturday.
I won't blame you. You've
Yeah,
had like 2 busy weeks as well.
Yeah, it's just it's non-stop. I think next week might be a bit more relaxed, but we'll see.
Might.
But yeah, let's get into it.
Yes.
So, a golden opportunity fell into our lap a couple of weeks ago. With Across the Spider-Verse and all the characters it gave us that people might not know a lot about.
Yes.
So last week we covered Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, who is, by the looks of it, one of the antagonists.
Mm-hmm.
The other antagonist is actually one of my favourite obscure characters of all time. Spot. So I know Spot from the Spider-Man animated series that I grew up with and Horry watched in his 30s.
Just an absolute
and
stray.
I don't even know why, because like the show, like I said, I watched it when I was really young, so I don't remember. You know how certain certain episodes of shows when you're young
stick out.
Mm-hmm. I vividly remember the episode with Spot on it, or the couple of episodes with Spot. So when I saw that he was the villain, I was like, okay, this is gonna be really cool. But I mean, I never knew that much about him. I just remembered him. He was like a really obscure character that I saw once and never saw again. I wouldn't have been surprised if when I went to research it was like made his first appearance in that show. But let's get into it. So, Dr. Jonathan On, aka Spot, first appeared in Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 94. All the way back in July 1984.
Right.
So he was around for a while, but that was just as the Doctor. He made a first appearance as the Spot nearly a year later.
Right.
So Dr. On earned his doctorate at MIT, where he was roommates with one Quentin Beck, who the knowers amongst you will know that is Mysterio.
Oh, yeah.
As a scientist, he was hired by the Kingpin, another Spider-Man / New York villain, to try and study the radiation emitted by Cloak, which is another Marvel hero, to try and mimic his teleportation powers. So Cloak is a shadowy figure who looks like a cloak, and when he curls up on himself, he can teleport through his dark dimension, which he has complete control over.
Very cool.
So Kingpin hired Dr. On to try and study, recreate, and gain control over these powers. One night while working late, Owen was successful. He managed to create a portal in his lab. However, the power required to keep the portal stable caused a blackout across the city of New York. And in a moment of panic while watching this portal destabilize and begin to collapse on itself, he tried to dive at it to try and stop it, and he fell through it.
Oh, shit.
When he awoke, he assumed he was in Cloak's dark dimension until he looked around and realized it was actually half light and half darkness, with what seemed like an infinite number of portals all around him.
Okay.
So after some searching, he found the one that led back to his lab. However, after getting back to his lab, he realized his body had gone under a radical transformation, and all of these portals had adhered themselves to his body, meaning that the portals were now one with him, and he could peel them and put them back on as he saw fit. He then quickly realized that this ability, if he could harness it, could make him good enough to fight the likes of Spider-Man, Daredevil, Captain America, and all of these other thorn in his sides for his employer, and maybe it will give him a bit more recognition and respect. So when Spider-Man and the Black Cat Felicia Hardy arrived at Kingpin's penthouse to try and stop him, he appeared out of nowhere, declared himself the Spot, and that they were to go no further. At which point, Spider-Man fell over laughing. However, he was quickly shut up when the Spot beat him by adequately using his powers to bamboozle Spider-Man. Because of the way his portals work, if he attacks from a portal, Spider-Man's spider sense can't detect him because he's not in the universe yet. He's in a different dimension. Which, I mean, is always tricky. Spider-Man has always had a lot of difficulty dealing with villains who can avoid his spider sense. However, Spider-Man was later able to beat the Spot after causing him to throw so many portals off of his body that he became weakened himself and couldn't sustain them all, which made him easier to beat.
Right. Okay.
Spot's a really interesting character because on paper he's a bit wacky.
Yeah.
But very unique and interesting. But he's never really massively been utilized. Like I said, he got used in the animated stories for I think it was like a 3 or 4 episode arc, which was really cool. And he's clearly playing a big role in some kind of multiverse stuff in Across the Spider-Verse. Now, we could argue with the references in the trailer to the MCU that actually he could end up having a big impact on the MCU going forward with whatever happens due to his powers.
That's a good point.
But it's really interesting because, I mean, in both the animated series and in Across the Spider-Verse trailer, he also seems a bit dim-witted. Because he's like trying to rob a bank, trying to rob like an ATM machine with his powers, and he's like putting his hand in there, and it's just falling out another part of his body because it's going through the portal. So it's really interesting how they're going to portray him. I don't know if he's going to be an antagonist for that long or what, but it's definitely going to be interesting, and I think they can definitely have a lot of fun with his animation style and how they can use that to really give us some cool shots.
Yeah, I think they'll really play around with that on the animation side of things. Super cool though.
It is indeed. Right, now, what everyone came here for.
Yes.
The Mandalorian finale.
What
baby.
I loved it. I know there's a decent amount of Star Wars fans that have had their gripes about the whole season.
Like, Star Wars fans unhappy? Never.
Yeah, they were more iconic duo. But I thought there was one small thing, which I don't even know if it was like the whole spy thing is the only questionable thing about the whole finale.
Yeah.
But overall I loved it. I loved the whole fight, what Grogu was able to do, and actually like bounce around, but we got a happy ending in Star Wars.
Yeah.
For now. But like,
it's not a good sign, is it?
I mean,
actually, no, I'm not happy.
Oh.
The Darksaber is gone.
You know what? I wasn't expecting that. But I'm glad. I actually am not against them destroying the Darksaber. At all.
I'm not sure how I feel about the destruction of a species culture.
So here's the thing though, it's been a curse for the Mandalorians.
I get that.
So in a way, you could look at it as
more of a symbol of them being able to unite.
Yes. I think it's more a symbol of this is a new era of Mandalore. And unknowingly, essentially, Moff Gideon has kind of broken that curse and going to make them finally all unite as a clan. And
well, interestingly, there is a very popular fan theory doing the rounds on TikTok that I'm sure you've seen about Moff Gideon. So in seasons 1 and 2, Moff Gideon had a little mustache. And we saw his clones in them back to tanks. They did not have mustaches. Moff Gideon didn't have a mustache this season. So some people believe that actually the Moff Gideon we have seen this season and saw die was not actually Moff Gideon, but one of his clones.
I don't know. I feel
it's an interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea. I'm not sure I buy it.
No, I don't think I do either.
I think. So here's the thing: we know Grand Admiral Thrawn is back for Ahsoka.
Yes, we do.
We know that he is a very popular character and a very big fan favorite villain.
Yep.
And we know that we've got a film coming to tie up what has been referred to as the Mandoverse.
Yep.
The big bad for that film is most likely Grand Admiral Thrawn.
I would agree.
So I think bringing Moff Gideon back yet again would feel empty.
Yeah, I don't. You also need to remember, like, his thing on the Shadow Legion or Shadow Council. He wasn't the one that was meant to be doing the cloning. So it's like, I get a feeling his clones were like a little secret project he was doing.
Yeah.
So there's probably...
He was trying to manipulate everyone else on the Shadow Council so that he could be the Grand Leader.
If you looked closely, some of those clones were messed up.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't think he'd perfected it yet. Also, he talked about the fact that he was trying to produce a clone that could then have the Force.
Yeah.
So I don't think he'd ever achieved like his final version of a clone. So I do think that was him and not a clone of him. Also, like you say, Thrawn's going to be like the big bad going forwards. We obviously have Ahsoka, we have season 4 of Mando, and then we've got a film down the line. I think what we're going to see is essentially Thrawn dealing with the fallout of the mess that Moff Gideon's now created.
I agree.
And that the Mandalorians have regained their planet in power.
I think season 4 is going to be... I mean, it'll have a more overarching story, I'm sure. But mainly it will be adventures that are a little bit more one-shot. That are purely going to be about making Grogu ready to be a main character.
Yeah, I think I saw a good theory of what this, like, I don't know if you remember in season 1 of Mando, there was I forget her name, the wrestler, who she was the sheriff, and she was meant to be getting a spin-off series.
Yeah, and then some of her old tweets surfaced.
Yeah, and it all got scrapped. That stuff will be there, and I think what we're going to see in season 4 is with Mando working with the New Republic, essentially some of those ideas that they probably would have run in that series of this, like, doing jobs for them and kind of bounty hunting, but on the good, like a good side thing, as a way, like you say, to train Grogu up. And I think the overarching thing is going to be, I think the end of season 4, we'll see Grogu get to do his blessing in the waters or whatever, and reach that point of being able to speak the words, leading into the film.
Screaming in that scene when he was looking at them discussing whether he could take the oath, for him to just go, "This is the way."
I thought he was going to say, "This is the way," or something.
This is.
I did like, and this, we're bouncing around, but I did like in that at the end, he quite clearly felt the presence of the Mythosaur and had like a little force connection.
Yeah, the Mythosaur opened its eyes like, I sense a presence I have not sensed for a long time.
I have the theory of, when it comes to Grogu doing his speaking the words in the waters and having his like blessing time, or whatever they want to call it,
his baptism.
Yeah, his baptism. When that happens, I think the Mythosaur is going to rise out of the water behind him, and then everyone's going to be like, "Oh shit, Grogu is our future."
You're just going to have everyone tapping Din on the shoulder going, "Well done, you raised a good one."
Yeah. But I mean, for the episode, for the finale, I thought we had a great fight scene, like the whole Mandalorians in the air, like that whole thing.
The
The amount of
jetpack
times where
combat was
yeah,
phenomenal.
like the way they kept showing I love the shot to be like a wide angle shot of like the planet surface, and then you'd either have TIE fighters like zipping out just to show like how fucking many there were. But then we got the same with the Mandalorians jetpacking. The whole like switch as they dropped in through the clouds, the TIE fighters happened to come out. We had Axe absolutely just make a wild fucking call on his own with no information to anyone else that he was just going to plow the ship into the planet. Everyone was wrong about the armorer, or so it seems. I
Yeah.
mean, we made our
Unless
theories.
this is a long con.
Whether it's a long con, I don't know. I think it's more a case of, which I kind of mentioned last week, which was obviously the armorer was Death Squad, hence why
Death
she's
Watch.
still Death Watch. Sorry, hence why
The
she still
Squad.
has the helmet and those
Yeah.
like iconic spikes and stuff. And obviously, Moff was just trying to
There was a
imitate
lot
the
of
Sith.
I think there was a lot of valid reasons why people thought the armorer was
Yeah,
up to no good. And if it would have turned out that she was up to no good, it would have been like the writing was there for them to go that way. I don't think it's a problem they didn't go that way. And I
no,
think if they want to go that way in season 4, they can play it off as a long con.
yeah. I I don't think she is, because then I saw a post that was like, if you look at everything she's done to try and bring the Mandalorian people back together, it's like, why would you do that to then screw everyone? It feels like a bit of a. She comes across sus at times, but in the grand scheme of things, she has actually done a lot for the Mandalorians.
But we all know that one uber religious person who, even though they are nice and you can trust them, you just look a bit like, you're a bit much, aren't you? It's just that kind of vibe. She's just crazy religious.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um,
But imagine being one of them stormtroopers in that fight, flying up and then just getting right hooked with a hammer out of the sky.
I said as we were watching it, I said to Jenny, I was like, even if it turns out she is part of the reason that this has gone wrong and Paz Vizsla died, the way she fights is still badass as fuck.
Yeah, it's like, imagine you got Mandalorians flying at you with guns, one's got the dark saber, and then one just comes from your left hand side with just a hammer just to clock you on the head.
Just
Like,
absolutely rips your head clean off.
I loved watching both fighting with the dark saber. And then meanwhile, we've got fucking Grogu went and saved Mando. I loved that they kind of just didn't even hang about. That
Yeah.
Grogu was just like, nope, he's off. Grabs the gun and he's like, no, no, no. Um, I have never cheered so much for Grogu as I did in this episode.
When he was laughing at the
Yes,
Praetorian guards,
yes,
I cracked. Jenna was like, "Oh my god, he's scared." I was like, "No, he's laughing at
yeah,
them."
yeah. I was like, you could hear him making noises, and then the subtitle was giggles, and I was like, oh my god, he's laughing he's mocking them. The little guy's mocking him. Yeah, no, he was like completely juking them, and then you got Mando was getting his absolute shit beaten by Moff Gideon.
Yeah.
Bo saves him, and then between the moves between Mando, Grogu, and Bo throughout the whole fight, like as they
I really
slowly
like to
became
view.
cohesive.
Yeah, I really like to view Grogu as actually having the entire situation under control. And if he wanted to, he could have dealt with it in about 3 seconds. But he was like, "This is fun. I don't want to ruin your fun." So he was like, "Just move that. Just
Well,
move that. Just move
it's like
that."
that thing where it's like Grogu knows what to do, but it's like, well, this is Dad's fight. I've got to kind of.
Yeah, I
Dad's
don't want
not
to step on
told.
his toes.
Yeah, Dad's not told me to do anything. But like, there was the very cute moment where Grogu slid on his knees, just like Din Djarin does, and it's like, oh, he's slowly becoming a Mandalorian. He's imitating. And every time he used the Force, um, I was
Really
like,
controlled.
yeah, I was like, cheer. It's like it was quite clear that the fight in a way and the love that he has for Mando and Bo was unlocking the
For
skills
sure.
again.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, what else? We also had the way Mando dealt with the guards in the on the run up to The
Okay,
control
yes.
center.
I shit my pants. Okay, so I'm gonna see if you can see the reason I got nervous. So what I saw is the wise master who has found a very powerful young force user chasing
Mm,
after a villain with horns and a
mm,
bunch of laser doors
mm-hmm,
that were gonna shut off and open and shut off and open,
mm-hmm,
separating people.
mm-hmm.
Do you see what I was nervous
Oh
about?
yeah, so to be honest, back when we first saw those doors when Moff Gideon walked through them, I had like that kind of, oh, this is like them laser doors. When we saw
Yeah,
it again this time, and obviously we'd had the helmet reveal and everything, I was like,
Jewel of the Fates. Fuck
let
no.
let's be honest. Moff Gideon is 100% full fanboying, like trying to be Darth Maul.
Uh-huh.
Like
He's got a boner for Darth Maul.
yeah, he has an
Valid.
yeah, and he's like channeling everything he can about Darth Maul, and I think that was clearly on purpose by the
Even the
writers.
double-ended weapon.
Yes, like I fully think writers fully intentionally wanted you to make that connection.
I mean, let's all be clear here. Dave Filoni's clearly a massive Darth Maul fan.
Yes, I
So
mean everyone
like,
is.
yeah. So like, he maybe he views himself as Moff Gideon slightly.
Maybe. I like that the R4 unit. I forget, is it R4? Oh
R5D4.
yeah, got to do his own little like save the day situation of
Yeah.
unlocking each of the gates. Um, but yeah, the way Mando dealt with those guys, I thought was sick. Each like swapping weapons, fighting each of them differently, and then what else? Like there was, it felt like so much happened.
Yeah,
I
it was lots of just like 4 or 5 minute bits, just bang, 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 bang. It was
yeah, but
action packed.
every fight was so well choreographed and so well put together. Um, Obviously we had Axe Wolves kind of trying to take on a fleet of TIE fighters and destroyers on his own, and then just decided, ah, fuck it, I'm gonna plunge this straight into the ground and give everyone about a
Yeah.
5 minute warning, if that.
When it was really cool though, when as it's coming straight down, he just shoots out the window and just cuts out the window. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that was really dope.
Yeah,
The
my man
barrel
had a
roll
plan.
out of a star destroyer.
He was just like, I'm gonna ride this right to the end, make sure it's really aimed perfectly, and then I'll get out.
It was so good.
There was, to be honest, the Praetorian Guards, even though they got absolutely murked, I love seeing them again. The way that they like appeared while and took on Grogu. There was a lot of moments where I thought either Grogu was gonna die, Mando was gonna die, or even Bo was gonna die.
Yeah.
And when I like genuinely surprised that none of them did. But the fact that they were able
It
to,
makes me worried for now that we know there's a film coming and we know how much Dave Filoni likes to make us sad. Is he just gonna build up all these characters we love and like only 3 or 4 of them make it out alive?
here's my theory though, right? If our theory of Grogu being the one to lead Mandalore means Bo has to die,
Mm-hmm.
so there's gonna come a point where Bo is gonna, something's gonna happen, um, and I think that might be in the film.
Mm.
But overall, I love the finale. I love the fun and like the happy ending of them flying to the New Republic camp. Dave Filoni this time, like full on cameo on camera, not just the
Uh-huh.
back of his head. Um, and then they made the little deal. Grogu got his nuggets.
Yeah. We
Uh,
got IG-12 back.
yes, we got IG-12 back, who is now the sheriff.
I loved how he was like, I'm here to. It's like the only good police officer.
Yeah,
All cops are bastards except IG-12 or IG-11.
IG-12 is
Sorry,
on. Yeah, well, um,
whichever it is.
yeah, I loved that. I loved all the different like kind of trophies they had up. I need to
Well,
look up what that stormtrooper helmet with the claw marks in, because I feel
question.
like I've seen that somewhere.
Question.
Yes.
Now, be sensitive to the fact that I'm not that far through Rebels.
Yes.
But Ezra collects helmets. I know that. and likes to collect trophies from the Empire.
Yeah.
And we saw Zeb in that exact same bar earlier in this series.
I would
So
say
is
it
that
wouldn't.
maybe a habit Zeb has picked up from everyone?
I wouldn't be surprised if it is.
Or maybe even just a little reference to that.
Yeah, and I think it's also kind of like war. Like people in wars collected things from like. You got to think like when we fought back in World War II, like people collected German military gear. So it's a very common thing to do. I think there's something about that stormtrooper helmet though with the claws marks. I need to look it up. But I thought it was very cool that he like purposefully went there because he knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
And then yeah, they have their own little place just outside of town.
So
Dad and son moment.
Do we think that whoever we meet in Skeleton Crew, because we know that's operating around the Outer Rim around at a similar time, do we think that we end up bumping into them during season 4?
Wouldn't surprise me if there's some sort of run-in with them. I hope it's in Mando and they don't do a Book of Boba Fett situation and have halfway through Skeleton Crew, Mando hijacks the show
that
for
would
like
not be
3
good.
episodes.
And I mean, if they've done that after getting Jude Law in to be the face of Skeleton Crew, that'd be pretty shitty. But if they want to have them make a cameo
the other way
in Mando in season 4, because season 1 of Skeleton Crew will be out and done then, that could be really cool. Depending on what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot they could do with this because you've got to think this is a period when the like we have these warlords. So do you know what I think might happen? Season 4 might also include Mando hunting down some of these Shadow Council people.
That'd be really cool. What's the game? Dishonored, just Grogu going around killing the Shadow Council one at a time.
It's gonna be. I think what we're gonna see is a lot of different planets, so Grogu can understand different races and cultures like Mando does. It's gonna be a lot of star travel, a lot of combat because he's got to improve. Yes, I think it's going to be a very much kind of back to the sheriff-esque, like cowboy style.
I also think we're going to get a little teenage Grogu grumpy era during his training.
Probably, where he wants to do his own thing.
Yeah, where Mando's like, no, you got to do this. Like, you know, like the trope that's like in the Karate Kid and any kind of thing where you've got the young student and the elder teacher. You're like, why are we doing it this way? And then they're like, wax on, wax off. And like, you're like, oh my God, you were teaching me karate.
Well, do you know what's going to happen? It's like Mando's going to be teaching someone and Grogu's just going to be like, but I can do it this way and just force pull something.
Yeah.
Or like uses the force and Mando's going to be like, no, you need to learn to not fully rely on the force. You need to be a full, well-rounded warrior.
Yeah. It's really, really interesting. I just can't wait to see what we get next. And I am sad it's over. I want more.
So am I. I'm excited for Ahsoka though. Excited for the Thrawn reveal in Ahsoka.
I think that we let Dave Filoni finish off fixing the sequels, which is clearly what his plan is and what the Mandoverse is going to deal with and all of that. And then you sit him down and you go, what do you want to do to the Star Wars universe? And he goes, okay, cool. I want to go work in the High Republic, or I want to go 200-300 years past everything we've seen so far and go even further in the future and do something there where I have a bit more of a clean slate, so that I can really build something. And you just give it to him. Let him do it. If you look at all of the unique characters he's been instrumental in bringing forward via the Clone Wars and Bad Batch and Rebels and Mandalorian and all of that, just give the man the gates. The keys to the gate.
The only other thing that he might think about doing before he moves on is something set during the Disney trilogy. So I like how he used Clone Wars animated to fix the prequels in a lot of ways. Maybe he comes up with something that needs to go in there just to help fix one last thing or something. I don't know, but
maybe
I do hope that once like you say, once things are fixed and squared off, he is given kind of the free reign to be like, okay, where do you want to go next? And he's like, well, I have a really good idea for this. And it's completely somewhere new. And they're just like, yeah, sure, go for it. Like, we trust you.
Yeah.
George trusts you. Like,
Because I feel like a lot of what we've seen from Star Wars is Coruscant and the Outer Rim. That's about it.
yeah,
Like really in depth.
yeah.
Give us some. Give us some more. We know it's a big universe. We know there's some stuff going on. Let him do a fully live action flashback series to Camp Dooku as a fucking apprentice or whatever. I don't care. Whatever he wants to do, just let him do it.
That or, I don't know, go back to when Yoda was only a young
A
training.
lot of people were adamant, and I don't know too much about it again because I think it gets dealt with in Rebels. But after what looked like in Ahsoka, the place in between, whatever it's called, a lot of people are like, what if Grogu goes through the place in between and ends up actually being Yoda? Which I think would diminish how unique a character Grogu would be.
Yeah, no.
But it would also be a little bit like a what? That'd be wild.
It would, but I think there's been too many instances of like Dave saying like these are this is not baby Yoda, like this is different.
Them fighting the Baby Yoda allegations this
Yeah.
entire time to just make him Baby Yoda would be
I think they want
outrageous.
them. Here's the thing: like they want them to be their own separate characters, and they're like Dave said, like they don't like they have rough ideas about that race, but like they haven't and not necessarily intend to dive into the race of what Yoda and Grogu are. Or I know he said they have no like they think it's actually better to not dive into who Grogu's family is, and like he is Mando is his family, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
Which I think is the right call.
I would be really curious to know more about Yoda species though, because we've got three that we know of.
Yeah.
Yoda, I forget the lady one.
Um.
What's her called? What's her?
Yeah.
Yaddle,
Yaddle.
Yaddle,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yaddle. I
and
think.
then
And
Grogu,
Grogu.
and we know nothing about them.
No.
We know they live a long time. We know as a general rule they're all quite force sensitive. And that they tend to sit more on the neutral to light side of the force. And although they're all quite force sensitive, only few of them actually go into the Jedi Order because of like their personal alignment. But like we know all about them.
Yeah, we don't.
It's crazy.
Might be something we see in the film that's set like the Dawn of the Jedi. Maybe there's some more of it revealed then.
It'd just be so interesting. And don't get me wrong, I kind of like the mystery around these characters. They're so powerful. We know nothing about them. Ooh. But at
Yeah.
the same time, we're like, I really want to know more. There's got to be
Well,
interesting stories cutting about.
that's the thing. Everyone wants to know more about Star Wars, and there's just so much to explore in it.
Yeah. When you build such a big, interesting universe, everyone will always be fighting over what should be focused on at any given time. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people who like give us more Dathomir lore. Give us a series set during like the peak of Dathomir. Let us see what's cracking.
Yeah, no, that's also like there's so much that they can go into.
So Dave, get to work.
Yeah. But overall, great finale. Looking forward to Ahsoka, looking forward to the next season. I'm looking forward to the film. It's gonna be a very good time for Star Wars.
It will. It will. But now with the weekly shows and that finished, I've got time on my hands to start working through my comic book backlog.
Yes,
That
you
pile
do.
there. There.
He's got it. There we go.
All comics. Yeah, inverted. It's difficult. It's tricky. Yeah, so I've got time to start working through my comic backlog. And I realised people always talk about TV shows with friends. They always talk about films with friends, music with friends, books, like full-on books with friends. People don't really discuss comic books.
No,
despite so many people reading them.
There's kind of this like, I guess in a way, a stigma that they are more for kids than as, but also understood that adults do read them and collect them. But then it's like You don't discuss about that as an adult, sort of thing.
And also part of the problem is, if someone talks about a book to you, you go, "Oh, what happened in the book?" They explain the book to you. Yeah, it's 600 pages long, but it's still got a story. It's a beginning, a middle, and end. Comics are different. It's like this ongoing soap. So, like people from the UK, we've got Coronation Street, EastEnders, Emmerdale. They've been going on for 30 years, and we all know if you sat down and you didn't miss an episode of EastEnders for 2 or 3 weeks, you'd be caught up. You'd be good to go. You know what was going on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how comics work. At any time, you can start in a serial and just start reading. The first few issues, you might be missing little bits of information, but then you'll be right into what's going on. But for some reason, people still find it really difficult to get into them and understand what's going on, or even where to start. So I sat down, I had to think about it, and I think I've worked out what the problem with comics is.
Okay.
So we've got to start off with the issues.
Yes.
So for the most part, the characters that everyone knows are incredibly old and long-running characters. And these characters are interconnected with so many other characters. You've got these massive sagas spanning 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Which makes them inherently intimidating.
Yes.
Just like no one will take up reading Game of Thrones lightly because there's just so many books. Like that's intimidating to people, let alone 60 years of back history. As well as because it was people who enjoyed it initially were looked down on, some of them people now gatekeep it slightly, which is also a problem. But in addition to this, for one comic book character, like a Batman, there can be dozens of comic book lines all releasing simultaneously, which make it even more confusing as to know what's going on.
Yeah,
So
and
just
which one to pick.
as an example, currently in print serials for Batman.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Batman. Batman Incorporated. Batman the Brave and the Bold. Batman White Knight presents Generation Joker.
Right.
Batman and Superman World's Finest. And also Detective Comics.
Yeah, okay, I'm already lost.
Yeah?
Yeah.
If you wanted to start reading Batman comics, where the fuck do you start there?
Yeah.
So the hilarious thing is the original Batman serial that would be classed as the one would be Detective Comics.
Right.
Because that's where he made his first appearance and that's where he's been running. And Detective Comics is on an issue 1100 or whatever.
Yeah, so then, because to be honest, you probably would, as someone from the outside would probably go, whatever is just the Batman or like the Batman and Joker one, because like, oh, I know Joker.
Yeah.
Everything else is like, I don't know.
Exactly. So if you're a Batman fan, which one do you collect? Are you expected to collect all of them? At which point you're going, wow, that's a huge investment. If each of them are once a month, you've got what, 8 issues a month just of Batman that are between £1 to £3. What, like 15 to 20, 15 to 30 quid a month just on comics when you're not even sure if you need all of them?
Yeah.
You're going to get someone who's like tempted to dip their toe in, who sees that and just goes, no, I'm out, I'm done.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a big problem. And the reasons that these issues exist is due to the nature of characters like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Hulk. These characters are so old and so well known, eventually you're going to get these creative people coming in who want to take the character in a different direction. They want to try a darker Superman, a darker Spider-Man, maybe a brighter, more funny Batman that's different from what people expect.
Yeah.
And while the editors of Marvel and DC are going to be like, okay, I'm interested, let's try it. There's someone who might want to see that. They're not going to want to change your your Detective Comics, the Amazing Spider-Man line, the Action Comics for Superman. They don't want to take these long-running lines that are 8, 9, 1,000 issues in and just take the character in a whole new direction. So what do? They create these mini-series.
Yeah.
They create these side series like the Spectacular Spider-Man. They give us the Ultimate Spider-Man. And then, Johnny's got to do the Ultimate Spider-Man. I want to do Ultimate Wolverine. I want to do Ultimate Captain America. Before you know it, you have the Ultimates universe, where Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are still brother and sister, but they're also in a romantic relationship. And you get this universe which is completely different, and everyone's like, whoa, what the fuck is going on over there?
Yeah.
And it gets even more confusing because then you talk about these things and you go, oh, remember that comic where Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were getting it on? And everyone assumes that happened in the main universe, and it didn't.
Yeah.
And it makes it even more convoluted and confusing, and people go, oh, I have no way of catching up on this.
Oh, no, it's wild.
Yeah, and on top of that, you'll get mini-series. So this big story that's 8 issues long. It's only ever going to be 8 issues long. That's not a problem. But then people don't know what that's canon to. Is that canon to the DC? Is it canon to the Detective Comics? Is it canon to like the main continuity? Or is it just
still completely
short, or is it just like a little Elseworld story?
Mm-hmm.
And it can make it difficult, especially when potentially you then have a mini-series that's not just a Batman mini-series, but it could be a Batman and Martian Manhunter mini-series. It could be a Spider-Man and X-Men crossover.
Yeah.
And then you've got to worry about, the X-Men teams and their continuity and all of their characters, and it can get really tricky. So, how do we fix it? What are the solutions? And how do you get into comics if you want to give comics a try? So, things have been tried. DC and Marvel haven't just gone fuck the lot of you. DC attempted to tidy their universes up with a new 52.
Mm-hmm.
And then tried again with Rebirth a few years later. But some people might argue that makes them even more confusing long term because they didn't work. And now you go to Google a character like I do for our character profiles.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say at the beginning of all of our character profiles surrounding DC characters that I'm not as confident on, I'll go, some of this information may have changed as part of the new 52 or Rebirth. And it might have been different beforehand. Again, which can be another blocker to entry.
Well, yeah, because then you don't know where to start.
Exactly.
Like how far back.
So maybe that's not the perfect solution then. So then you look at what Marvel have done with The Amazing Spider-Man, which is what started back in 1962 or 66 with Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. So what they do is every time they've got a new writer taking over the Amazing Spider-Man series, they restart at number 1 to try and create an entry point for people. But they still keep a legacy number on it. So it will have the big number on it, which will be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will be underneath, it will say LGY number. So Spider-Man's at number 914 or whatever at the minute, legacy. But in this writer's run, number 20, for instance.
Right, okay.
So that makes it a bit easier. But it's still daunting. You're like, do I need to go back and read all 913 issues? Do I need to buy the big Spider-Man volume omnibus? That book there, next to the Invincible one that's only covers the first 100 issues or whatever? Do I need to buy all of them at 100 quid a pop? So maybe that's not perfect. So it's not easy.
No, it's not an easy task.
And there are far too many blockers keeping people out of it. So there is no perfect solution, which is a huge issue. If there's anyone smarter than me that wants to get in a call and we'll discuss this for hours to try and find the perfect solution, hit me up. But what I think Marvel and DC really need to work hard at is on their websites a clear idea of what's going on.
Yes.
Earth 616 is Marvel's main continuity. So you go, okay, I want stuff in their main continuity. Earth 616. And that shows you all of the continuous comic lines that are currently going on in Earth 616.
Yeah.
Who's writing it? What's going on? Who's involved in that story? Go. Cool. And then maybe for the other universes where there's a couple of bits going on, they can have stuff there as well. But what if you just care about a character? You don't care about the bigger picture. You just want to read a Batman comic.
Yeah.
Okay. You go to DC, you go Batman, and it shows you the Batman, the Brave and the Bold detective comics, and you're like, okay, I don't know what one of these I want to read. And it gives you a little synopsis. Synopsis, is that the right word?
I think so.
of what that kind of comic is about. So, for instance, the Batman comic line is more about Bruce Wayne and Batman and the more comic book action. Whereas Detective Comics is more about Batman and the Bat family. So you get more crossover from other characters, and Batman might not even be in an issue of it because Detective Comics covers the entire Bat fam. And it's more about the detective side of it. So, like, when there's a fight scene, it's a bit more important.
Yeah, I get you.
Because it doesn't happen as often. It's more about the detective work and the intelligence of Batman and the interaction between the Bat fam members. And maybe that's more what you want. So then you can look at it and go, okay, cool, there's 12 million different Batman comic lines. What one is what do you just want like a silly goofy one where it's going to be wacky stuff? Maybe they can just go, here's the one where we're trying stuff. Go see what you think.
Yeah.
Again, that still relies on people knowing what they want, which isn't easy. But at least then if someone does know that they want to read a Batman comic or a Spider-Man comic, or they want to know what's going on in the main universe, it's going to be easier for them to find it.
I have an idea.
Go on.
So there's two ways, like, playing off the things that you just said. I think the idea of having like you're able to go, I don't know, you pick, right, Marvel, I want to read Spider-Man. And it's like, do you want, and it asks you, do you want the current main continuity, like the main one? And it's like, if you're like, yes, it's like, cool, here you go. This is the latest one in the main amazing Spider-Man storyline that's been going on forever. And it gives you the current, and then you can also see like, we're on episode 20, here's the first 19 as well that go with that. Or if you're like, no, it then goes, okay, do you want, it should ask you more questions. Like, they need to come up with something of like, if you're new to comic books and you go to the website, it's like, are you new to reading comic books? And you're like, oh, yes. And it takes you through like a questionnaire essentially. For like doing it with the Batman example, you could be like, okay, what sort of Batman would you be into? Just Batman, Bat Family, Detective Batman, or Batman and villains? So it's like all the wacky ones with all the villains. Someone clicks that and it takes you to the right set of comics that relate to that.
It almost needs to be a third party doing it, so that they're not trying to. They don't have an interest in what you end up buying. They're just like, okay, let's help you here.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, how I got into comics was a headache. and that's how I know how much of a headache it is and why it took me so long. But what it came from was seeing on Twitter people already in the know talking about how, oh, it looks like this film is being adapted from this story. And I'm like, oh, I want to know more about that. So I go and find, like the Civil War story, for instance, when Civil War got announced as a film, everyone's like, oh, I can't wait to see how they adapt that. And I'm like, wait, that was a comic? So I went and bought the fucking Civil War comic. It's up there somewhere.
Well, here's a great example.
The arcs will occasionally be put into these slightly bigger books, which can be, depending on the size of it, obviously, can be £20-30, and it's an entire story, and the comics inside of it for like the bigger events. So like the Civil War stories took place over different characters' comic book lines.
Yeah.
They weren't all just like Civil War. It might have been Spider-Man Civil War, Iron Man Civil War, but they all get put in this one book together as a Civil War story, and it has everything you need to know in it to read that story. That's a really good way to get in the habit of reading comics, and then from that you'll go, okay, I think I get how this all works. I feel a bit braver now in going into trying to find a series I want to follow.
Well, you bringing up Civil War has reminded me back when that got announced, because that was, let's be honest, that's a while ago now.
Yeah.
I remember I had a friend who, he was like, oh, I remember reading them comics. This is going to be super cool and super interesting. I remember back then looking into, oh, maybe I should start getting into the comics with the MCU and stuff and like figuring out stuff. And being way too overwhelmed and being like, my brain eventually then never did it. To this day, like, I've never really got into comics because there's just so, like we've been saying, there's just so many options and it's just too much for me to like sit down and spend time to figure out.
Yeah, you are absolutely right.
Mentioning of films though, and I don't know if you're going to get onto this, but we saw it with DC recently, which I think is also a great way to help point people in the right direction of where to start. Is James Gunn was like, look, everyone, you're hyped about these, you're asking, this is what Superman's based on, this is what Supergirl's going to be based on. Here's some of the comics we've been leaning on. So then the casual fans that are liking the films go, oh, okay, I can go read the comics that are going to be about the film that I want to watch. If Marvel started doing the same, it's that first, like, easy, like, look, here is some options for you, so you don't have to figure out. You know what it relates to. They'll go read that, and then it's like, oh, now they can start venturing into these other things further.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No.
And you do have to, unfortunately, at the moment, put a bit of time into it. What I will say is, if you go through that and you go, okay, I want a Batman series, Forbidden Planet, we have an affiliate link that's down below. That's
Yep.
what I use for all my subscriptions. I spent the time, I worked out what series I wanted to follow, I worked out what the series were. So now I get The Amazing Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, The Flash, Detective Comics. There's other ones that I'm paying money for that I think I'm forgetting right now. And then they box them up together and they send them to me every month. And then I know I'm getting individual this issue and it will keep running. And because I've gone for the ones that are long running ones that aren't going to stop, I don't have to worry about it too much.
Yeah.
And it makes it really handy. But Marvel and DC, while they're probably laughing, counting all their money from all their films and all their TV shows, really, really need to work out how to make comics less intimidating and difficult to get into. And also, if you're really desperate and you're really intimidated, Google where your local comic book shop is.
Yeah, and
And
go
go
talk to
down and talk to the person behind the desk. I've been into maybe nearly 10 different comic book shops from different places. There are a couple where I live, but I've also seen other ones while out and about in the real world
them.
that I've popped into. I've never, ever had someone who is not helpful, polite, and eager to help you find what you want.
Well, yeah.
They are some of the least intimidating people I've ever interacted with because they just know that comics are so much fun and so difficult to get into that if they can help you find what you're looking for, they will. And they will also order stuff in for you. If you're like, oh, I really wanted a Batman, I really wanted to read this particular Batman story, and they don't have it there and then, they will order it in for you. And then you can go back and collect it.
Yeah, the like local shops are so good for that.
Exactly. And for now, we've just got to do our best to find the comics we want to read. And then when you realize how much you love comics as well, join the fight in shouting at Marvel and DC for making it so difficult on us.
Yeah, and I
Newbies.
mean, like I mentioned, like hopefully James Gunn continues to recommend or like shout out which comics some of these films are based off, because I think he will, because DC will now have seen, oh, that was really good for us. Let's do that every time, and then hopefully Marvel follows suit.
It shows that there is a taste for comics when it's easy to know what you're looking for. When James Gunn's saying exactly what story by what writer is inspiring the stuff they're working on, sells out instantly on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's be fair, they were for relatively. They weren't Superman and Batman level characters. It was Supergirl, Booster Gold, characters that are quite well known and people who know the names, but not your superstars. And everyone's like, okay, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, buy this writer. That's what they're doing. Boom, mine.
Yeah, exactly. Like the fact they gave such specific examples of what they were leaning on. Like Marvel needs to take a page out of that book.
Exactly. Now, the Supernerd summer preview.
Yeah, I like the title.
Yeah. I'm good. I come up with good titles occasionally. Well, we got some good ones. I'm proud of this one.
I have a slight tweak.
Go on.
You should have done Super Nerd Summer Selection.
Oh, that's so much better. So I was sat here as I'm looking at this week, and I'm like, oh, there's not a lot of content this week. We even had to go for a dry spell. I'm like,
No.
surely not. This summer's supposed to be jam packed, isn't it?
Well,
So,
you're not
so I
wrong.
start doing my googling, and I'm like, okay, cool, we're good. This is just a quiet week. The quiet before the storm.
Oh, mate.
So, films this summer.
Yes.
Just this summer, there is no film that I'm about to list that comes out like any later than August 18th.
Okay.
That's how jam packed this summer is.
Okay. That is a lot.
Yeah. So we start in 2 weeks with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The end of James Gunn's work in the MCU before he goes
Mm-hmm.
full time over to DC. The end of the Guardians trilogy.
Yep.
And the end of, I think, a big portion of the MCU in the sense of Guardians proved that you can make cult heroes out of nothing characters.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Yes.
these characters are some of like pop culture's favorite. You can go around the world and you will find a child with an I Am Groot t-shirt.
Yeah.
And before Guardians, I mean, when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, was announced, people were declaring the MCU was dead in the water because they're having to rely on D-list characters who no one even knows about.
Yeah, here we are.
Then we
Mm-hmm.
move on to Across the Spider-Verse,
Yes.
the sequel to quite possibly the greatest piece of Spider-Man media of all time.
Soon to be dethroned by its successor.
Yes. The animation is second to none. The care and detail in every element of the first film was phenomenal. It had one of my favorite cinema scenes of all time in the Ascension scene, where Miles
Mm.
takes his first leap of faith off the building and they invert it, so instead of it look like him falling, it looks like him rising to the challenge. The
Yeah.
the beauty of that film is something to behold. And they've gone, wait, we've got more for you. In fact, we've got so much more for you. This is only part one, and there will be a part two.
Yes.
It's going to be phenomenal,
It really
and I
is.
cannot wait. Then we get the first Transformer film I've actually been intrigued by the trailer for in a number of years. In Transformers Rise of the
Yeah.
Beast. The other trailers after the third one was the last one Shia LaBeouf was in, I think. I think there's been 3 since. I just kind of never paid any attention to him. I was like, I'm kind of over it.
Yeah, I think I watched the fourth one and kind of
Was that
lost the
Dark Side
taste
of the
for it.
Moon?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then lost
I
taste
think
for it.
they packed him in a bit too tight. And the problem with Transformers at that time for me was it's just Autobots versus Decepticons over and over and over again, instead of like there being different parts of it. But they managed to bring it back a little bit with the Beasts, which seemed to be another subset where seems like the Autobots and the Decepticons might have to work together a little bit. It looks interesting. It looks really well put
Mm-hmm.
together. It looks like we've got some new characters. It's interesting. We might not even have time to go see it, but it looks interesting.
It does look interesting.
Then we get what could make or break my summer. The Flash.
The long awaited.
Long awaited. Many controversies in the build
Oh,
up. There will be many controversies around it, I'm sure.
yeah, there will.
But my God, all I've seen of people who've got early access, sneak peeks, and everything is that it could be one of the best films made in the superhero comic booky world. It looks stunning in the trailers. We get Michael Keaton returning as Batman. We've got Ezra Miller's Flash. We've got Supergirl. It could be something that reignites the love for comic book media and ends the superhero fatigue.
It could.
Followed swiftly by something I never thought we'd get.
Yeah.
In Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This will be the 5th Indiana Jones film. And by the sounds of it, they're trying to make big leaps in technology by having large portions of the film done using the de-aging technology. We've seen it used a couple of times in films for just scenes here or there. By the sounds of it, there's like a decent amount of this film using the de-aging technology on Harrison Ford.
It's going to be interesting.
if they've done it right, it could be a big breakthrough in cinema going forward. But it could also fall flat on its face and somehow be seen as worse than the Crystal Skull.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a bold, depending on what the story is, because we don't really know much, but like, it's bold to try and lean so heavily on
Yeah.
de-aging.
I think based on what we know, they're setting this up as a passing of the torch film, so that there's going to be more films in this universe afterwards, but not with Indiana Jones as the main character.
Yeah, they're trying to come up with the right way to be able to continue the
Yes.
franchise without him.
Because they tried to do it at the end of Crystal Skull with Shia LaBeouf's character,
Yes, they did.
but then he went a bit off the range. The film wasn't well received, so they kind of sidelined it for a while. I would love Indiana Jones to make a comeback because I love them. I love the first 3 films growing up. They're still some of my favorite films. So if we can get Indiana Jones as a franchise back at the peak of its power, it's gonna really, really boost my summer.
Here's the thing as well. Now thinking about it, like personally, I think Shia LaBeouf is in a much better place and a much better actor now. Like, would be kind of cool if he made an appearance in this and it was like that second chance to pass it on.
A bit of a redemption arc for Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Then we get a film that I'm really intrigued in. For
Mm-hmm.
one reason, the fact that it's labelled as Part 1.
I'm
Mission
more.
Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Yeah, I'm just impressed that they've still got this franchise going.
It's interesting because when I was a bit younger, I hated Mission Impossible because it felt like they were beating a dead horse. And
When
then
you were younger.
Fast and Furious
Oh,
managed to beat their horse more dead. And then you've got all these other long-running franchises that have popped up around Mission Impossible. And instead of just like trying to make their money, Mission Impossible did genuinely go out and improve their films.
yeah, they did.
They've got actors of pedigree instead of them just being 2-hour action flicks. They tried to add a bit to them. And don't get me wrong, they are still action flicks, but they've given them a bit more substance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised Mission Impossible is still going, but it'd be interesting to see what it's like.
Yeah. And I'm really, really curious to see if this is genuinely going to be an end for the Mission
Possibly.
Impossible franchise, or if Part 1 and Part 2 are going to set up Tom Cruise's successor.
Possibly.
And over the next few films, he is going to slowly take step backs so that then a new person can take over from Ethan Hunt.
Honestly, I think I'd prefer seeing it be the end. But we'll see.
When has Hollywood ever cared what
I
we
know.
prefer? Then we get something that kind of crept up out of nowhere.
Yeah,
but I'm very, very excited for.
Just appeared out of nowhere and everyone's very hyped for.
The animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film.
Yes.
We've got 4 young actors voicing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who some of them have a load of experience as kids, and some of them have very little experience.
Yeah.
In the trailer we got, their chemistry seems to be phenomenal. We've got Seth Rogen's voice acting, and Seth Rogen to me has proved that he is a phenomenal voice actor, being one of the only highlights for me in the Mario movie. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think, is in every young person's heart in quite a important way. If they've done this right,
well, don't forget they've also got
phenomenal.
They've also got Jackie Chan, who is also someone in a lot of our hearts from when we were younger, from his films and from the animated Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
Show.
This film has everything it needs on paper to be a roaring success.
It really does. I'm very, very excited for this film.
I really hope it can deliver on what is being teased of its potential.
I do think it will. And I think it will be a strong it's going to put us in a tough spot of which is the best animated
Yes,
between that and Spider-Verse.
yeah. And then we get again another thing that I've been excited for a long time, and I really hope it can deliver. There is a number of opportunities for me to be genuinely heartbroken this summer.
Yeah.
And Blue Beetle also has the ability to break my heart this summer. It looks good. We've seen the trailer. It looks like one of the best costumes we've seen in a superhero film in a while. It has the ability to pull off a Guardians of the Galaxy like heist and go, here's a character you don't really know about. Boom, now you're in love with them. But is it all going to be for naught in James Gunn's new DCU?
And do you know what's going to be, in a way, more painful? It's like, these are going to be great. And if they're both really great films, but then they're not going to continue forward.
You think that would hurt more?
I think for Blue Beetle, Flash, it's kind of a bit of a redemption for the DCU way to end, if it's great. For Blue Beetle, it kind of feels like this is a great character everybody loves. Shame it's not carried on, but I suppose maybe then it opens James Gunn's eyes to maybe we use this character in the future then because everyone loved it so much. I think what's going to be worse is if both these films are great, what I think is going to happen is everyone's going to be like, oh shit, DCU kind of ended on a high. And then it's going to end with Aquaman 2, which is going to absolutely flop, and everyone's going to go, there's DCU. That's why we've moved on.
Yeah, quite possibly. And that's just the films. We still got
that was
TV
just
stuff
films
coming out this summer. Secret Invasion. Bit of espionage. A very different tone from what we've had recently in the MCU. I'm hoping we get a Captain America Winter Soldier type tone. One of my favorite MCU film.
Quite possibly.
And if we can hit that level, oh my god, what a show it's going to be. And it has such a phenomenal opportunity to hit that.
It really does, and it has the opportunity to really kind of blow everyone's minds on what's been going on in MCU.
Yeah.
And kind of blow open the doors on things.
Indeed. The Witcher Season 3 is coming out this summer, which is going to be Henry Cavill's last run out, isn't it?
It is. I don't know. It's. I worry. Hang on. Isn't season 3 is this final one, isn't it? Yeah. Or did they swap the torch for season 3?
I thought he'd already filmed season 3.
Now I'm questioning myself. I think you're right, but yeah, Will.
Yeah, this is last season. Season 4 is going to be Liam Hemsworth.
I think it'll be good because it's Henry Cavill and he'll have been able to put pressure on things to be done right. But I think going off season 2, I worry that it will stray further away from what is Witcher by the books and the reason that Henry ended up leaving. And that's my worry with it, is like, although Henry will be great, I think the story might start to stray too far and we'll start to see the cracks in that show. But yeah, be interesting to see his final season playing The Witcher.
Yeah. Then we've got a show I know we're both very hyped for.
Yes.
Ahsoka, rounding out the summer, taking us into the winter, or the autumn rather.
It's honestly
starting in the summer, so I'm including it.
Can't come soon enough. I'm so excited for Ahsoka.
I'm so ready. I'm glad it's just a little bit far away so that I can grind Rebels and get it done in time.
Yeah, you need to get caught up.
But I'm enjoying Rebels, and I'm hoping that I won't finish. I'm trying to not get through it too fast, because I don't want to finish it and then have to wait another 2 months for Ahsoka.
Yeah, I get you.
I'm trying to find that right pacing for it, but you know what it's like with me and TV shows when I'm really enjoying a show.
Just know that if you do finish it quick, you then have all that time in between to go and find out all the connections that have been made.
Yes, true.
Catch up on all
back
that
and
stuff.
rewatch all of Filoni's live action stuff to go, oh, I can't believe I never noticed that.
Yeah.
And then there is still a chance that one of Echo or
Mm,
Loki season 2 could start by the end of the summer. Neither of
yeah,
them have been given official dates yet, but they are still both technically slated for summer 23. Now,
I
I think only one of them is going to get out because they're not going to have two
yeah,
shows going on at the same time.
I
But
think
I'd
it's
be surprised if one of them doesn't get to start before the end of the summer.
I think purely off the fact that we've had some small teasers for it, Loki is more likely to come out.
I agree.
Um,
But it
more
could
of
be
that
very
has been
exciting.
filmed and done, as far as we're aware. So
Yeah,
I think Loki has a chance to start before the end of the summer.
so do I. But I mean, that's crazy. We're talking what? So
So
the first one's in 2 weeks, and then the end of it will be at the end of the 8th month of August. So over 3 months, we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 films, 3 TV shows, maybe 4 TV shows.
yeah, we're looking at like essentially 2 films a month and at least a show a month.
Mm-hmm.
So
So everyone, I hope you are ready to spend a lot of money on popcorn and cinema tickets. I hope you're ready to degen in bed watching the latest episode of whatever show is out,
yes.
because we are eating good this summer.
Oh, we really are.
Um,
There's a lot
the nerd summer body is ready.
the popcorn
Um,
body.
yeah, I cannot wait for it. Um, it's going to be really good. It's like, even if only half of this content lives up to its
Oh yeah, I
potential,
mean,
it's going to
as
be great.
if half of those films are great, we're doing well. Um, there's definitely going to be some flops in there, I think.
Yeah,
And with TV shows, there's definitely going to be a couple of shows that are more well received than others.
yeah,
But we can't complain. We're getting a lot
exactly.
of Marvel, we're getting a lot of DC, we're getting a lot of Star Wars, plus all the extra stuff. So
And with the superhero fatigue that is here, this probably will
mm,
be the last summer we have for a while that is this jam packed.
yes, I do think going forward we're going to start to see this stuff spaced out more.
I think this is like one last hurrah for the people who will turn up and watch everything.
Yeah,
Um, because we're gonna have bigger gaps coming up soon.
I agree. I agree.
Um, time for some nerdy news, I think.
Yeah, there has been, on top of all this, there has been some news this week.
There has. The standard Thursday night news came a little bit early, so we didn't get blindsided by it. I was able to include it.
Yes, you
Great.
were. It's a rare occurrence.
It was. Normally we finish this call about 2 minutes later. We go, okay, what did we miss?
Yeah, literally.
So Marvel
Mm-hmm.
has announced that the Raimi trilogy, the
Mm.
first Amazing Spider-Man film, and Spider-Man: Homecoming are all coming to Disney Plus.
Yes, they are.
Amazing Spider-Man: The Raimi trilogy is going to be live today as you're watching this, April 21st.
Mm-hmm.
Homecoming is coming to Disney Plus May 12th, I believe.
Which,
So that's good.
yeah, we love that. I mean,
I
I'm
don't know why
glad.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 isn't coming on. I can only imagine it's
I
got a licensing deal somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess they've licensed that to somewhere else for a while.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I'm
sorry.
glad we are seeing the Sony Marvel deal continue in like a good direction of they're now allowing
Yeah.
they're seeing the value of these being on Disney. Obviously, the Spider-Man films they've done together have been a success with Tom Holland. So it's
It,
great that we're going to be able to have the whole collection there.
it's crazy to think 3-4 years ago it looked like Spider-Man was leaving the
Mm.
MCU because Sony and Disney's relationship had fallen apart, and if it wasn't for Tom Holland drunkenly calling the head of Sony,
Yeah, literally.
we might not have a Spider-Man in the MCU right now.
And this stuff wouldn't be coming to Disney Plus.
It's crazy how close it was to go in the complete opposite direction. But based on what we're seeing, it looks like this might be the healthiest relationship Sony and Disney have ever had.
Yeah, and I mean, as if them bringing these films onto Disney Plus goes well for them and they see the value in that, then we might start to see the Spider-Man films getting released on Disney Plus a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So,
And included in that,
mm,
Venom is coming to Disney Plus. Just the first one. I assume Let There Be Carnage still has a licensing deal with someone else.
I would imagine it's probably the same place where Amazing Spider-Man 2 is.
Yeah, I don't know where they're hosted at the minute. It probably take me. I mean, let me see where. Venom.
It's going to be
Let
something
There
like
Be Carnage. Where
Netflix
can
or
I watch this?
HBO or something.
It's currently on Now TV.
Oh, okay. Which
So
is
maybe that's what's stopping it.
yeah, probably. Which is like Sky/HBO.
Yeah. But that's about it. It's not on anywhere else. And I assume just that Disney don't even want Morbius.
I mean, I wouldn't
Yeah,
blame them.
Morbius is just available to buy from a bunch of places. So I imagine they're just like, no, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, we don't want to pay you for that. Thanks. Keep it.
But I mean, it's exciting. It means people who've got Disney Plus can go back and watch whoever their favorite Spider-Man is now.
Yes.
We can all be together enjoying our favorite Spider-Man, no matter what.
And we can watch them all and then watch the Homecoming. Well, we can watch them all come together.
Yes. But it's really interesting, and hopefully, like I said, as this continues to go well, the Spider-Man films can make their way to Disney Plus a bit quicker.
Yeah, hopefully. It'd be cool to see that.
James Gunn made some big news.
He did a big announcement.
Yes. Did you see what day he did it on?
I didn't actually.
So it was April 18th he did it on.
Oh, okay.
Which was also Superman's 85th anniversary of his debut in Action Comics.
It's quite smart then.
Mm-hmm. And he announced that the script was basically done, by the looks of it. And that they'd entered early pre-production, which included some production design, some costume design, and stuff like that. But we are well on our way to Superman Legacy, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
The process has begun. And it's very exciting. I mean, there's no better time to make that announcement than Superman's 85th birthday. But it's very exciting. It also just shows what I was saying earlier about how old some of these characters are. 85 years.
Yeah. It really does show.
Superman made his debut on Hori's 21st birthday.
Just unnecessary straight. Second of the day as well.
Yeah, and you're dying of COVID. It's rough out
here. Honestly, kicking him around while he's down.
Yeah, it's rough.
But exciting. I guarantee it won't be long before we get some like tease of the suit. That'll be the next thing he likes to drop. It'll be like some tease of like a Superman S or something.
Yeah, it's getting interesting, that's for sure. And there's one thing I also forgot to mention on here.
Okay.
And it's been a while since we've spoken about this.
Oh.
There is more casting news surrounding Fantastic Four.
Oh wow. Okay.
Apparently, Adam Driver is now lead front runner and very much the favorite to be Reed Richards in the MCU.
Interesting.
He's got down to like final stages. There's no rumor on who else might be involved in that.
Give it a month, it'll change again.
Yeah, apparently he is very, very popular as the favorite now.
Okay, interesting.
And on another note, it shouldn't be too long now before we get rumors about who the MCU's Wolverine's going to be. I think it's Daniel Radcliffe's turn this time to be connected to the role. Because it was Taron Egerton last time. So I think it's Daniel Radcliffe's turn.
Yeah, probably something like that.
And an interesting one that isn't my kind of thing, but it'd be remiss for us not to mention it. There is an original Stan Lee documentary coming to Disney Plus on June 16th.
Yeah, which I'd remember it getting announced, but I'd actually kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, as long as it's respectful.
Yeah.
And it talks about the good and the bad equally, because he wasn't a perfect man. It will be interesting to see if there's anything we don't know about or anything that improves, changes the view of Stan Lee in the community. I imagine, seeing as it's Marvel, Disney Plus, it's going to be very, very complimentary.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some like extra like cuts and loopers of like his cameos and stuff and different things that like stuff behind the scenes stuff we've never seen before. It's going to be an interesting little documentary, I imagine. deep diving into him. But other than that, I think that covers.
I think that's about it for the news this week. It was in that sense a slower week.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, it will be interesting to see with all of these films and shows coming out over the next couple of months how much news there is.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fight on marketing front from all these different places of like when an MCU thing's out, like DC is gonna be trying to fight with their. So we might see a week of like, there's a Secret Invasion is out and everyone's talking about Marvel, so DC's announcing a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of that sort of marketing wars, so to speak. But yeah, I think news is gonna get a bit sporadic over the next few months.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're only going to see news from Marvel when DC are getting the talking points, and we'll see news from DC when Marvel are getting all the talking points.
Exactly.
Just to try and keep their name out there in circulation. But this is the thing with the modern news cycle. It's 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
It used to be a 4-week news cycle 10, 15 years ago. We're down to a 2-week news cycle. Some people would argue it a 1-week news cycle. News doesn't last that long anymore. So as a result, these companies just keep on giving more and more information constantly.
Yeah, they do.
Should we move on to the Superhero Showdown, Mr. Zontal?
I think we shall, considering we pushed it back from last week.
We did. We had such a jam-packed week last week, and we thought this battle deserved our full attention.
We did.
So this is our Marvel semi-final.
Ooh.
It is Ghost Rider representing the Marvel heroes versus Ultron representing the Marvel villains. It's an interesting one. They're very different characters with very different power sets. And I seem to remember last week, Mr. Zontal, you had done some research.
I had, and I've just had to go find my notes from last week to remind myself. So I looked up some things more so about, because for one, we know Ultron is made from vibranium on the outside.
Yes.
So we already know that's a pretty difficult thing, an alloy metal to damage. Pretty indestructible from most things. And with Ghost Rider not really having any form of weapon that clearly would damage that, kind of poses some interesting tactics that might have to be kind of used. Because I looked up some different things, put some different people's thoughts to try and get other perspectives. And obviously Ghost Rider has his pen and stare, but I don't feel like
got him as far as it has.
It has, but I don't feel like that would now work on Ultron.
I would be inclined to agree. I would
with him being
that
an
Ultron does not have a soul.
Yeah, and I don't think the anything that has been used to power him up, like there's nothing magical enough going on there to give him some sort of a soul. So I don't feel like pen and stare would work. I mean, Ghost Rider's chain's not really going to do damage, so it kind of left one suggestion, which was Ultron has been beaten in the past, not by his external being damaged, but damaging him enough so his internal components break, because they're just electrical components. And if they break, then at the end of the day, he's a robot and he won't function. Ghost Rider has Hellfire.
Yes.
Now, my thought process was, can Hellfire heat Ultron up or do enough damage to cause damage to his internals and beat him that way?
Yes, it absolutely can. The question would be, do we view Ultron as just one Ultron bot? And do we view Ghost Rider as winning for simply destroying that Ultron bot when the AI can escape to a server?
So I think we do view this fight as just him versus one Ultron.
Okay.
It can be the prime Ultron or like the number one that he uses. I think him being defeated by being sent back to the server or whatever is just the same as like when Hulk gets beaten, but technically like he's just can't fight anymore, or this what we had with Wolverine, like if he's just broken to the point where he can't fight, but he's not dead.
An Ultron retreat is an Ultron loss.
Yes, I think if he can't use that structure anymore and he has to retreat into the through the internet or whatever into his uh server, that is classed as a defeat in that fight. Because here's the thing, Ghost Riders. I don't see how Ultron kills Ghost Rider.
It's an interesting one. But if we're saying a retreat for Ultron is a loss, a retreat for Ghost Rider will be a loss as well.
True. I wonder. I kind of feel like this goes one or two ways. You either have Hellfire can do damage and damages internals and beats him that way, or it's kind of a stalemate, which then poses an interesting scenario.
So I think Ultron can cause Ghost Rider a lot of pain, and I think he can exhaust him. Granted, I'm not too up to date with my Ghost Rider, but I know in the film he was only really active at night. Ghost Rider form max time. How long can he stay in Ghost Rider form? Jonathan Blaze
Can perform all night.
Weaknesses. Corruption, a very dangerous side effect of using damnation stare on demonic entities is that they're more bankrupt because not demonic doesn't matter. Heavenly weapons doesn't matter. Post separation. No killing with a heavenly weapon is one way. Another way to defeat the Ghost Rider is to separate the spirit from the host. This makes the host return to be mortal, but the spirit will remain in its current state until it finds a new body to inhabit.
Which is essentially the same as causing Ultron to go back to his server.
What do we think's easier? Do we think it is easier for Ghost Rider to get Ultron to retreat to a server? Or do we think it's easier for Ultron to force him out of Ghost Rider form?
This is where I feel like we get to a bit of a 50-50 stalemate scenario.
I'll be honest, I came into this thinking Ultron was curb stomping him, but you raised some really interesting points. And I'm actually leaning more of like a 55, maybe even 60 in favor of Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I would say I feel there's a higher chance of Ghost Rider doing damage enough to Ultron first than there is to Ghost Rider being separated from his host. Because in the case of like
a reminder of the Hellfire is a big tipping point in my opinion.
Because that's the like I saw one thing someone mentioned, and someone was like, "Oh well, Hellfire is not going to do anything to Vibranium," but at the end of the day, you don't need to do anything to Vibranium.
It
Like
melts
you could have
components inside.
yeah, you could have
vibranium.
Exactly. You just have to do enough damage that he can't function anymore, and then he's going to retreat.
And also, we got to remember, vibranium has been molded. It's got to have a melting point.
It has been alloyed. I don't know if Hellfire is, because hasn't Ultron been through a star or something?
According to the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, vibranium melts at 5,475 degrees Fahrenheit. What's that in real temperature? 1,475 degrees.
What's that in European degrees? Not freedom degrees.
In real degrees. In actual things that matter. 475 in Celsius. 3,000 degrees Celsius.
It's pretty hot.
I feel like that's not that hot though.
3,000
Celsius fire. What would that be look like? How fast? No. What is temperature of fire?
Well,
Temperature and
here's
colour,
something to put it in
fire
perspective.
temperature.
The sun is 5,700. Wait, no, that's not degrees C. That's Kelvin. Oh no, 5,500.
A Bunsen burner can reach 1,500. A propane torch can reach nearly 2,000. There's no way Hellfire isn't reaching 3,000.
How hot is... Well, the thing is, it's like, Hellfire is magical fire. So I don't know if it has like a...
That's 717 Kelvin.
That's what Hellfire is?
Yes, what's 717 Kelvin?
I don't think that's hot enough then.
443. Okay, you can't melt him. Ooh, we flip back and forth.
But then that's the thing, like, that's still going to be hot enough
to start damaging stuff inside.
Well, I think it can. Because we also got to remember...
Marvel Hellfire, 1 second.
Ultron is not a solid piece of vibranium. There are crack openings and joint openings. Like, he does enough damage to like a shoulder, boom, can't use an arm. Do enough to like an internal like hip, boom, legs out of action. Like, he could break him down from the inside out. I think that's like, I just feel like that happens because you gotta remember as well, being bloodlusted, Ghost Rider is gonna do everything to keep that mortal form like connected. Like, that's gonna be the last thing he is like. You're gonna have to really like beat him down to rip him off from his mortal.
Yeah.
So I do think it tips ever so slightly in Ghost Rider's favor.
I do think it does. So I think we're although I didn't expect it. I think I genuinely didn't. I know I try not to think too far in ahead advance these because I have strong opinions if I do that. But you've convinced me. I do think you're right. I think Ghost Rider can take
in a wild situation and probably a first for the podcast. I have convinced the comic nerd with my internet research skills.
Yeah, no. Google is always your best friend. So it's up to you, viewer. Get in the comments. Tell us why we're wrong. Tell me why Hori manipulated and lied to me and how Ultrons actually should win. But as it stands, Ghost Rider's made it to the final. Good always beats evil. So will he be facing Swamp Thing or Ra's al Ghul in the final? Is the real question.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. The Ghost Rider versus the Demon's Head sounds like an interesting final to me.
It does.
Maybe that's the final we get. Maybe it's not. We'll see. But I think that's it from us.
I do think that is it for this week.
We've got a couple of quieter weeks coming up before the madness ensues.
We do.
So if there's anything you want to hear our thoughts on, anything you think we should discuss, etc., get in our comments down below. Let us know what you want to see, what you want to hear about. Give us things that you think we could have an interesting discussion about. Let's hear it, because otherwise we'll end up waffling about random shit. And that's never a good thing.
Or if we're lucky, like, I don't know, James Gunn will drop some absolute banging news that
James Gunn accidentally leaks entire Superman script.
Yeah. Reveals new actor.
Yeah, why not? But that's it from us. Thank you as always.
It is.
Make sure you liked. Make sure you subscribed. We're getting ever closer to 400 subscribers, which is craziness. So make sure if you haven't already, you've hit that subscribe button, you've hit that bell so you don't miss any videos.
Yeah, only 95% of you are unsubscribed.
It's actually 94%.
Oh, is it? That was a guess.
Yeah, I checked earlier.
Well, you 94%, you must hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, make sure you do. You don't want to miss the content.
Yep. And we'll see you next week then.
Goodbye.